and streets, and he'll talk about what we call our PASER ratings. Probably the first one to start with now.
Yeah. I'm going to be Mr. Doom and Gloom here.
I'm surprised we only have a couple of 6s and 1 8.
If you look at the PASER rating, well, we have it broken out. We started from the top down with remaining service life. With the top ones, which is Beach Street, the ones we're replacing over here, that's 11 years past its replacement date. All of these top 5 are 11 years. Then we get into 5 years. You keep going down. There's 2 years, 4 years past its replacement date. What we're looking at is we have to replace basically every road in the city. Right now, in this budget that you're looking at, it doesn't have any funds for replacement. We cut that out so we can balance the budget. Last year, or this fiscal year, I had put in $105,000 into the major streets fund and $35,000 into the local streets funds, which is doing Beach Street and a little portion of Elm Street over here. The way the budget, or the way the bids are coming in right now, hopefully that it's going to cover that. It's not a lot of money. Now, from this year, we're not putting any money out for street replacement.
And the reason being is that our streets are fully funded by the gas tax. And with people driving less miles, electric vehicles, things of that nature, the gas tax revenues have been going down for a number of years. And we just don't have the revenues in our general fund to revert to the roads to put it in there and repair.
The Act 51 money that we do get from the state covers basically plowing the streets in the wintertime. If you want to look at it in the big picture, which I have to do with my job, I have to look 20, 30 years down the road. If, let's say 1st or 2nd Street, which both of them definitely need to be redone, we're looking at probably $350,000 to redo one of those streets. If I did that, one of those streets every year, it would take me at least 30 years to replace every street in town. Now, we're not putting away that money.
No.
We can't afford that. So what are we going to do? That's what I have to ask you. I mean, I'm telling you that this is what needs to be. This is what our needs are. This is what our needs are going to be, but we don't have the funds to do it. So I have to lay that out. The next one up is sidewalks, and sidewalks has been a hot topic ever since I've worked here, basically. And these are this is years ago, actually, the conditions of our sidewalks, and they've deteriorated since then, of course. I've got no answer for you. We don't have any money to put into sidewalks. If we don't have any money to put in the streets, we definitely don't have any money.
Now, the money that we did for the sidewalks, that we did the 50% reimbursement, that was a grant?
That was community block development money.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one. We get about $8,500 a year for that. We had to save up for years.
Right.
Just to do that small project that we did. We shared the cost with homeowners that wanted their sidewalks replaced. In fact, you guys took advantage of it, which is awesome. But we don't have anything out there to bring us up to speed. I mean, there's just no money that we have available. So instead of going forward, just like our streets, they're going to go backwards, which I'm informing you about.
Sure.
Because when the streets go back to gravel, I can say, I told you.
And again, I spoke earlier that, last year we had a financial workshop, and we may want to have another one, because we do have options. We could, in terms of the sidewalk, we could do special assessments. We could have a dedicated, or request a dedicated millage for sidewalks. Same thing with roads. So, I mean, there are options with the bond, but it's just, where do we place those in the priorities, and what do we want to take on? So, we just want to make sure the council is aware, and again, it goes back to my concerns, is we just don't have the money to meet all of our needs.
And I'm getting the feeling like this is not a thing we can trim our way out of.
No.
They've done it for the last 10 years. They've put no money aside to pave any roads.
Right, but I'm just saying, if you're talking about $350,000, I mean, that's not for one road. Like, that's not a thing we can, like, cut a little here and cut. I mean, we're talking about, like, a major section of our entire budget.
Yeah, well, and the other thing you have to look at is to redo Main Street. Thad touched on it a little bit. We're going to get a lot of money from the state and federal government. It actually comes from the federal government, gets trickled through the state, gets trickled down to us on a priority basis. Yeah, they're going to pay a lot of money, but we have to pay 40% of that.
Sure.
So we're looking at
No.
a conservative estimate of probably $700,000 that we are going to have to come up with just for Main Street, which means we are probably going to have to bond that money.
Well, we lose our transportation bond that we've already in right now. That ends
In a year.
this year, the end of this year. You know, traditionally, when I was in year 5, I fought for paving, and I even got called in and scolded because I let a road go by.
Yeah, well, you can yell at me all you want to,
Sure.
but there's nothing,
You cannot make money fall from the sky.
right, so I have to take what little money that I have in my budget and patch them the best we can.
Sure.
But that's not a fix. You know, that's just putting a Band-Aid on something, and pretty soon, somebody's going to have to make the hard decision and say, this is what we need to do.
Well, the buck has to stop here.
Exactly. And the same thing is with the sidewalks. Right now, to be honest with you, sidewalks aren't even on my radar, because there's no money there, we can't afford it, there's nothing I can do about it. The next thing we get into is the city's infrastructure. Jerry knows well, most people don't realize what's in the ground underneath the streets, and that's our sewer systems and our water systems.
Again, this is why I was so excited when he's telling us we went out to bed. I know you all are like, ugh, but I know what our water system is. I just put in new drains.
It's awesome that we are
Fixing it.
going to do some, and it's going to cost us $3 million.
I know.
Yeah. You know, in looking, explaining on all the roads and water infrastructure that needs repair, and with the bids that came in over, in those bids, we'll take care of some of these roads, some of them not, but it will correct a lot of the stuff. And it's been always my thing, pay me now or pay me more later. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're at.
But here's what we're looking at with our water and sewer infrastructure. We have this giant thing over my head. And this $3,000 or $3 million we're throwing at it is like the quarter in my pocket.
Sure. I understand.
Literally, like the quarter in my pocket. If I had $30 million, we could probably get up to speed. Jerry knows our infrastructure was put in, some of it in the 50s.
Some of it in the 30s.
Main Street was WPA stuff.
Yeah. So
It's
we're
still operational.
infrastructure has a lifespan of 50 years. That's its life.
Yeah.
We're way past that.
You know, for what consolation it is, I think probably 90% of the communities in the state are in the same position. Because since probably the last 12 to 15 years since we've been in these major problems financially, that's where everything's been cut. Mm-hmm. Capital, infrastructure, so if that's any consolation, we're not alone in this.
No.
Sure.
In trying to figure out. And Jerry's right, some roads will be addressed through this USDA project. Not a lot, but there's gonna be maybe 7 blocks or 6 blocks.
6 blocks.
6 blocks, we'll have brand new roads. It's something, but we have more needs. So that's why we need to take a look. I think it's a special meeting to talk about how we're going to address these needs and at least come up with some edible plans.
But I think we can't do it in this budget.
No. But again, this is just a good opportunity
Sure.
to enlighten council and get you up to speed. And things like this might be part of our strategic planning and visioning session about here's our needs and how do we do it and those kind of things. So
Yeah.
this is more informational, trying to make sure you're aware of what we're dealing with when we're trying to put together a budget. What can we afford to do and where do we put our priorities?
And I don't, like at the beginning, I said, Mr. Doom and Gloom, and I don't want to be Mr. Doom and Gloom, but
Yeah, you didn't create this.
but the way I am built, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think is going on. And that's our infrastructure is old and it's crumbling, and we're like that, like everybody else. We don't have money to fix it. We keep building stuff. We keep adding to our inventory. We can't even take care of what we have. We have the treatment plant. We cut out $50,000 out of the treatment plant budget that I had put in there and Deb took out this year, because that's all the equipment at the treatment plant is way past the expected life.
20 years old.
Yep. And it's good for 10. So we need to rehab reactors. We can't. And it's simple mathematics. We don't have the money. The water and sewer rates are going to raise 9%, 9 point some percent. And I'm sure to all you, you're going, wow, what a huge raise. You ain't seen nothing.
Nope.
In the next 20 years in the United States, the water and sewer rates are going to be astronomical because water's cheap.
In the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But look what's
It's
happening.
under, and if you look at California,
Yeah, I
and
just said, look at
California
California.
is sinking. It's actually because they're taking the water out of the aquifer. And the whole thing is going down feet, which is...
So those are going to, because we have to raise the money to replace their aging infrastructure, those rates are going to go skyrocket. So the little 9% increase that we're going to do this year is minimal. I mean, I don't want to make it sound small by any means, but it's going to be a minimal increase, and it's still not going to, that's going to bring us level. We're not putting any money away.
No.
We're not making money on the water and sewer. That's going to bring us up to level. We're going to have to, after that's done, we're going to have to look at, we need to put away money for when something happens. Now, I'm going to get to one more thing I'm going to get to is we have a healthy fund balance. $500,000 of unrestricted fund balance. If we have a national disaster or some kind of disaster in the city, $500,000 is gone today. If we have one of the walls at the reactor at the plant fail, $500 is gone. $500,000 is gone tomorrow. That's not a lot of money. I mean, it sounds. And before I took over this job, $500,000 is just an amount of money I couldn't even think of. But $500,000 now, to me, and to my position,
I see the structure
Yeah.
that's nothing. I sweat it as that when we get up to $3 million. I'm sweating that. And so I didn't mean to sound like Mr. Doom and Gloom, but this budget that you're looking at doesn't include anything. That's no money for street replacement, no money for infrastructure replacement. All we're going to do in this budget is patch stuff up, and that's it.
Yeah, we need to come up with an alternative plan.
Well,
Question.
Sure.
Just for my own clarification, being that I don't work on streets and I'm not the expert, you said that there's approximately $350,000 if you wanted to do the entirety of the street. Is there any way we could work toward that incrementally, or does the whole street need to be done at once? I mean, I just feel like we want to start somewhere, and we need to be able to build a vision of how can we start. I mean, obviously we can't just pull $350,000 out, but how can we start?
Right. What we have to keep in mind is when you're doing a project like this, is a lot of costs are in equipment mobilization for the contractor to bring all this equipment in and stuff like that. So that's why the CDBG money we put together and kept saving it up and saving it up and saving it up and did it all at one time.
And you can save that for 5 years, is that correct? Before you have to spend it?
Right. So, and that's why we did that, because if we did it all, we did 8,500 this year, we'd have the engineering costs and the mobilization and all that stuff for each and every year, where if we save it all up, we only pay that once instead of each and every year. So if you're looking at doing it that way on the streets, instead of doing block by block by block, if I can do the whole length of that street, we're saving, I would have to guess, probably 40% than if we did it block by block.
The more we get, the more work we have for them, the less expensive it is.
Exactly.
Molly, if you're looking for something, again, we come back to this USDA grant, we're gonna get 6 blocks of new streets. I mean, that's, you know, we can look at that maybe as a starting point while we're developing our plan.
Oh, sure, but for the long term, I want to see us eventually fixing this. I understand we can't do it now, but
It probably has to be done with bonds. We probably have to have rolling bonds.
But we do have to save every
Yes,
year,
of course you do.
which we're not doing in this current year at all.
I know this is talking peanuts compared to the big issue, but where does the money go when, for like ordinances that are broken?
Yeah, that depends. Thad could probably answer that better.
Like I'm saying, like the people that park overnight, does that go to, or does that go to
The parking citations for Ryan will come here, we'll get those. A lot of the others, it goes into the court system, if you have code violations, it goes to the court.
so if we started enforcing people shoveling their own sidewalks?
Possibly.
It can actually cost us money if they fight us and
It would.
lose and, yeah.
Even to enforce that
Yeah.
ordinance, you have to pay somebody to do it. And if you're going to go out there, take me for example, I'm going to spend an hour on this person getting him to comply with shoveling their sidewalk, you're going to write him a $10 ticket, you're losing money.
And the first, you can't, like, just say the first time. Like, usually there's I'm going to give you a warning, and then you have a certain amount of time to comply, and then I got to come back and check, and most people will comply, and then, yeah.
If you go to court, then you have court time in it.
Code enforcement, and I'm assuming you asked me because I've done it before, is a losing proposition. You don't make money on code enforcement.
So we just have
You don't
to
win.
presume hopefully the good people will do it.
You don't win monetarily.
Correct.
Yeah, you do
You
it
win in terms of appearance and compliance.
to keep your community safe and functional, but it's not, you don't make money.
Yeah,
Like, we don't
was
make money
talking
off of police either. I mean, you know, it's a cost to doing business. Just like we don't make money off our fire department. But we want them to show up when there's a fire.
Now, I can't go through my budget line by line like the other people can because it's way too huge. So if there's any other questions that you have, is there a line item you want to see, have a question on, I'd be glad to answer it for you.
Okay, he raised his hand first.
Okay.
Thank you. Ladies first.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
I noticed on the water system equipment replacement, I just took a look at some of the large changes in the budget. I noticed the transfers in was down $74,000 this year, and capital improvement was down $55,000. Is that part of not putting money back?
That when it goes down, you can ask Deb. When it goes up, you can ask me.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Which one, what was it?
The water system equipment replacement fund. Transfers in was, from last year to this proposed. Oh, let me find my section. And I'm actually, unfortunately, not tabbed.
Or what's the beginning three numbers of like how
It should be on the water and sewer fund,
What number?
Water fund should be 591 on tab 20.
And what line item are you looking at?
Let's see, transfers in and capital improvement.
520? What's your 000? Oh, you don't have it.
I was not experienced enough to know that I needed to do that.
Let's just find it fast.
Now I know.
It's in,
What line item number are you in?
are you transfer in 45,000, is that what it is? I think it is number 520.
And it's showing no transfers in on the water fund.
One thing I think of.
Well, I believe I'll have to get my ducks in a row and email.
Yeah, transfer in is 0. So
Yeah.
Right, I thought that it had been more last year, but I will do my due diligence and send you an email.
And again, just a reminder to council, if you want to come in and talk, you go through this, we'll do that. If you're willing to do that, not a problem. Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
just kind of going back to just touching on something you talked about, and that was Beach Street.
yes,
You say that fund is not coming out of our budget, that is paid for by, are we doing that?
yes,
And who's paying for that?
we are.
Now, okay, I didn't see that in there anywhere.
this year.
That's this year's budget.
We've already.
Oh,
We're doing it right
okay.
now.
Okay, great.
So Beach Street, is that going to be carried over?
Well, the problem with Beach Street is we can't get it done before July 1st. So we're going to carry over those funds from last year's budget into this year. It's basically the money's in this year's budget, we're just going to pay it late.
And one of our thoughts being is that when the contractor is into the USDA, that it might be advantageous for that contractor to give us good pricing because he's already here.
Right.
That was another reason that we carried it over.
And is that part of what he was talking about with the adjusted schedule and that it
No,
might
that
be?
wasn't part of it. That-
Oh,
Right.
that'd be
That's the
something-
USDA project, yeah.
right, but I didn't know if that was.
No, because it was two separate funding
Okay.
vehicles.
We didn't see that.
I'll figure it out with you. I'm gonna put it there.
Any other questions for water and sewer?
Streets, park, whatever you need, cemetery.
Are we going to go through each tab?
You can, yeah.
Can I ask a question about the cemetery? When I was just looking at this, basically the way that the cemetery makes money is through selling plots. But at some point, like the plots are all sold. And then how do we have money, like how is it self-sustaining?
It's the perpetual care fund,
Okay.
which,
I saw the $500,
right, that goes into a fund you can't touch.
okay.
Interest can be drawn off and over.
Right.
That's the PC. From that is basically the perpetuational care forever. Now, the sale of spaces goes in another, and then there's land out there that the cemetery owns that can develop into future sites. But once it's sold, it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna outlast you and I, so.
Okay. It looked a little bit like a pyramid. Like if you're dependent upon the sale of something that eventually you sell all of to maintain the rest of it, at some point you
There's a lot of
run out.
municipalities now do not do the perpetual care because it doesn't work that well. But when that cemetery was taken over back in the 40s, that was voted in by the people as a PC.
Okay.
So,
Is it self-sustaining?
no.
Okay. So we need to look at
You look at
that
the
long
general-
term.
You know, that's a general fund account, and that comes out of general fund expenditures to maintain that over and above the interest we get off the
Right, but I
perpetual
just,
care, and that is,
when we're
That's
looking,
not interested enough to.
but when we're looking big picture, that needs
That's a
to be
general fund.
part of the conversation
Sure.
about how do we make that, because I know there's been a lot of, frustration about trying to keep it trimmed, and I know it's a very labor-intensive string trimming, man hours kind of thing.
Actually, our cemetery prices are
reasonable.
very reasonable.
Very, very reasonable. Maybe too
And
reasonable?
one way of taking care of that is to up our rates.
I mean, I just,
See, there's two rates. One for residents because basically if you're a living town, your tax-paying general fund supports a cemetery. So you pay a lesser amount for a space than a non-resident because then they basically buy into the system. Any spaces sold to date, you pay the perpetual care up front, and that continually goes up.
but it's not enough.
Correct, so we can look at raising the perpetual care amount that gets taxed on the space. I mean, there's other options like that that we would have to go through.
Right, and I was trying to clarify when looking at that, again, not for today, but when I saw that $500, I went, that can't possibly handle that.
Mr.
I
Mayor?
mean,
Since we're on the cemetery, looking at line item on the capital expense,
What tab you on?
we're on tab 6. Line item 977,000, the very bottom, well, except for the, I went back to 1314, and under the capital expense, it showed $1,000, and then it went down to $700 for this current year, and then it jumps up to $2,500, and I just wondered what's going on there that we're jumping that far.
that's installing drainage tiles in the back section.
That was one of the things on page 23 that was listed as one of the things we were.
Oh, okay, so that's coming in?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a new idea then, something that we hadn't thought of last year because projection was for 0 on that again this year.
That's not a new idea, actually.
It's been going around, we just hadn't put it in the budget. Okay.
Yeah, we just didn't have the money at that prior years.
This year's funded.
Right, we purchased the materials, the tile, black socked tile, but now we have to do the excavation and actually install it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
May I ask a question? The gas utility expense on that for the gasoline for the lawnmowers, or different kind of gas at the cemetery?
At the cemetery?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong line. Okay, never mind. But what I did want to ask about the cemetery, is it a possibility to get a private contractor in there to,
Anything's possible.
is that something we could look at, maybe knock some of that?
Well, the concern would be is the cemetery is maintained by our DPW employees, and if, they work year-round. If we get a contractor, that would be new dollars that we'd have to put towards it. I mean, if we wanted to pay above and beyond what we're paying now to get it done, that's what it would entail.
You have to understand that those employees work at the cemetery. Now, if you take those jobs away from those employees that are out there, you have to send them somewhere else to do something else, which takes that budget and ups it. So if you're gonna decrease the budget out there, even if, I doubt you would save money, but even if you do save money, on contracting it out, you still have to have something else for those employees to do. They're going to be working on something else. So you have to take that budget and up that at least an equal amount to pay those employees over here instead of over here.
Are they pretty busy mowing all the time?
My employees are busy every single day.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how many times a week do they have to mow the cemetery?
Cemetery is usually 2 days every week, at least 1.5 persons.
And that's this, I would guess this time of the year, the grass starts growing. To get it prepped for Memorial Day, they'll spend more time, but then it tapers off.
Right now, I have somebody in there every day.
And that's one of the reasons that the city brings on a part-time employee, seasonal employee to help out in the peak times in the mowing. and things
We
like
have a
that.
lot of grass to mow.
Yeah.
If you only knew.
And that's kind of, we have a lot of grass to mow, and that's kind of why I said what I said earlier in the conversation, that we keep adding and adding and adding city responsibilities. Like all of the property behind the fire barn was never ours. All those, where the houses were, where the foundries were, where the trailhead is.
The White Pine Trail in general.
The White Pine Trail in general. That's adding all of this stuff, but we don't have the manpower or the funds to take care of it.
You haven't had an employee when they.
Right.
White Pine.
That's what I was saying when I saw that $500. I went, for the cemetery, I went, there's no way that it's covering
To
that.
be honest with you, our department is severely understaffed and underfunded. But we seem to make do. The squeaky gear gets the grease, and we are running on a reactive basis every single day. There's nothing, very little, I should say, that we're proactive on.
And I think part of the difficulty is the expenses are just so large.
Exactly.
Where, a computer dies, we can buy a $1,200 computer. We can move things around. But a $350,000 road
That's a different story.
is a whole different ballgame.
But we have to start looking
Yes.
that way.
Yes.
We have to start, and this is the perfect time. We have to start. I have to forgive me for saying this, but to drill it into your heads that we have to start looking into the future. We can't take today and say, okay, we got this, we got the budget taken care of. We don't have to worry about next year. We do. We have to, in the year after that, and the year after that, 30 years down the
It
road.
really needs to be a separate, we need to come up with a separate structure and conversation. Because the numbers are so large.
Which Thad introduced the capital improvement plan,
Right.
which helped us and me severely to actually look at what it takes going down the road to run the city.
Sure. And we need to then come up with
Right.
how
And
to
we
do
don't,
that.
and to be honest with you, we don't have the funds to do that.
Mr. Mayor? So in looking at, this has been bandied about, the idea of finding a contractor to come in and do that. So in looking at that and the salaries, we're not really going to save that money on the salaries unless we either decide that we don't need those employees anymore because the number of hours that would be saved by having somebody else do that work at the cemetery.
That's not an option.
And that's not an option because you have more work than you can handle already.
Exactly.
So they're going to stay on staff, but you would get more work done and maybe cover your bases better. But then the real question is, are we really going to hire somebody else in the immediate future that would help get those jobs done? The bottom line is we're not probably going to do that. Therefore, we're not going to save that $21,000 in salaries that right now is being used up in the cemetery. Is that an accurate figure on the salaries?
Yeah, I think so.
So, yes.
Still going on our account.
So we're still going to spend that money. So even if somebody would come in and say, we're going to cut the grass for $30,000.
Be my guest.
Yeah, I know. But what's that gonna do for us? We're
That's
gonna
not
pay $30,000, we're still gonna pay $21,000 in salaries, we didn't save anything.
We
Correct.
took on additional expenses.
Right.
Well, you have
Yeah,
two.
we have extra manpower, but can we afford the extra manpower?
You would have to have some
Right.
supervision out there for that people.
Say that again.
You would have to have people committed out there for supervision to how to mow it. How, what you expect out of the mowing. When do you mow? How often do you mow? And then it's stuff
Can they
that,
do it?
I think they can be learned, they can be taught, but I just don't see, I mean, as much as I would like to have a contracted situation, I know Bob and I have talked about this, I just don't see that we can do anything right now that really saves us anything.
It wouldn't save us anything.
Not unless somebody did it for free.
no. Yeah.
Volunteers.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying you're looking for a
Where
job
are
after
they?
you retire.
Never mind, oh, thank you.
But as far as personnel, and you made the statement that if we even got rid of some personnel, that right now we don't have the personnel to keep up on what needs to be done.
I hear you.
I mean, I'm scratching every day to, this has to get done, and I don't have the people to do it.
So just maybe if you want to go tab by tab and get back to that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready?
give Tom a chance to address.
Take it away.
Okay, we address those.
I'll tell you for tomorrow.
I don't need them to have nice with you. That would be nice.
Did you want to
Where
just,
we at?
I don't know where you have, maybe we go tab by tab to see who's
Yeah,
got
I think
questions.
to keep us on track, that'd be best.
Tab 3, any questions on that? Or revenue?
Not enough.
Any questions on,
6.3 is the revenues.
General fund revenue.
General fund revenue. I think they covered that pretty well.
next would be tab 4, which covers city council, city manager, elections, accounting and auditing, city assessor, city attorney.
This is the general fund expenditures.
All general fund expenditures.
Do we have an accurate amount about our savings on the police department? And
We'll get to that on the police budget.
I saw that, I thought I saw police on
Okay.
Okay, so no questions on 4, we can go to 5, which is the city clerk, board of review, general administration, and computer department.
We're on 5. I did have a question about 4. I just realized.
Okay?
At the bottom line, the city attorney's budget has been increased
5,000.
by 5,000.
That's the projected for next year. This year it's budgeted at 30,000, which is what it had been previously until this year we had all those extra legal expenses. But typically it's been 30,000 for the last few years.
So that, yeah, the 35 is just a projection for the next year.
We're not, that's just a forecast. We're not voting in the 16,000. We're only voting, gonna vote in 15, 16.
And we can go up to that in 20 years and then the budget.
So the 30,000 is our historical average,
We don't have to.
except for, with the exception of last year when we had those unexpected, unanticipated, high legal bills, we had to put more in there.
So there's, that, like you said, historically, it's been 30,000.
Roughly right around 30,000, yeah.
So they've had to amend the budget in the past.
I had a question.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just looking back there at last year's budget, and
On that tab.
we're just it's not a tab, this is last year's budget. Unless you have the budget page from last year, you don't see it. But under that, under professional service, where we're now at 53 this year, and going to go to 30, 2013 and 14 was 22,000, and then for 2014 and 15, we had 23,000, which is, of course, proved to be totally inadequate. So we were at around 23,000 is where we actually were projecting. But, I mean, I'm not saying that the 30,000 is a bad figure, but it is 7,000 more than what we
You
projected
don't know
last year.
that isn't necessarily what, you don't know that that budget wasn't amended. Because if you're looking at
That,
there.
well, I know it was amended, but I'm just saying that the 30,000, we just had a safe statement that that's where we were before, but it's not historically where we were. Historically, we were around 23 or 22.
But I'm saying that when that, I don't know that for sure because we have
It's
amended
right
the
there.
budget as the year goes on.
Well-
But you're not updating this book every time an amendment gets done.
This has the amended budget for 2013 and 14, $22,000.
As of what date?
It doesn't give a date.
Right. It could have been amended at
After
the 13, 14 if there were additional.
My point was
You have to
that
go into the
we
computer.
budgeted this amount. We may have changed it, I agree, but the budgeted amount was around 22.
Right, but, and we don't always go back to the budget amount, we gotta look at what
Right.
the actual amounts are.
Right.
I'm saying historically, though, we were not at 30,000. Historically, budgeted last year was 23,000.
Okay.
That's $7,000. It's significant, but
We,
with,
we amend down?
Yeah, we just save it.
I'm fine,
Right.
and I'm saying that, with Mr. Powley and all the fun that Linda's had with all that and the attorney, hopefully that goes away, but if it doesn't,
We save it.
we stay right there. Absolutely.
All right, we were on,
I have a
Yeah.
qu-
oh, did you have more on tab 4?
I think so.
Okay.
The street lighting.
Hmm?
At the bottom, isn't that on, am I on the wrong?
No, you're, no. Tab 5, or tab 4 ends with city attorney, and we were on tab 5.
I'm sorry, I'm on the
So
wrong.
tab 5 is city clerk, board review, general administration, and computer department. Any questions, council, on those?
It's on 448, 101-448. So you're aware.
We're coming that way.
Okay, I'm too far ahead, never mind.
Next is tab 6, which is city building and grounds and cemetery.
And I have my questions answered on the cemetery.
All right, we'll go to tab 7, which is the police department.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, so that's at the bottom, the 448-00.
We're not on that one yet.
Oh, I'm still not there.
We're getting,
You gotta back up. On a question, we had there, what is it, on line item 101-301.00
9/7.
-918, it's a pension expense. How long do we pay that?
Long time.
Okay, well, I was curious, because, during this, if it dropped off, that
But
means
they automatically became vested, so we have to pay that.
okay.
Yeah.
until,
It'll go down until it's paid.
What,
It'll go down
the
slightly each year.
easy answer is we pay until the actuarial tells us we don't.
Right, okay. That's, now that I
We
know.
don't. And I wish I knew what that number is,
Yeah.
but that's a commitment we have to honor, to keep the pension
Of course.
fund fully funded.
Another question on computer maintenance expense, we have to maintain a computer for them? The county?
We're responsible for things such as the connection to the internet, as well as the phones, part of providing the office.
Okay. That answers all my questions.
Okay, on tab,
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have a question there yet. I was
Police?
trying, sorry?
On the police department?
Yes, on the police department. And it's really not on a line item. I was just looking at the total for 15, 16. It's $664,181. And then looking at, Deb, maybe you have a better figure on this. What was our actual amount from last year? Although I know it's messed up from everything that happened. Do
You
you
mean
know
what the budget was last year for this?
Yes.
And there's a note at the bottom, our original police budget was $685,511. This is what we had budgeted the year we're in for police services.
So the 664, 181 is gonna be what we actually
No,
spend?
that's what we're budgeting for next year for police
Yeah,
services.
So,
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out, and I think there's a question here, maybe from those too. Where is that 100,000 to 130,000? Where did it go?
There wasn't that, there's never.
Okay, so how did that, what miscalculation was
What
made
I
by
took for,
Sheriff Stelma or us?
what I came up with, the 623, you'll see the line item for the 623,000, is their, and it was right in the council packet, is their expected budget for, it was in the council packet when you approved the contract. This stated what they expected the expenses to be for the coming year. And then they told me to add 4% to it for salary increases. So that's where I came up with the 623,381. It was right in the contract. And then we added in the pension that we talked about, and then the phone and the computer. So that's how I came up with the 664.
One of the problems we have right now is we just don't have enough history on it in terms of expenses, because it's an entirely new program for them. And so I believe very strongly that did a good faith effort, that's what they did. And now when they get into it, it's going to change a little bit.
Yeah, and
So-
there are lines in here where, and you probably remember from when we went over it, if this happens, then it could be lower, or if this happens, it could be lower.
Right.
So there's several, if then this will happen, but this would be like the high, what I would expect to be the high estimate of police services.
Right.
Okay.
And I'd rather budget high than be
Amen.
surprised.
It's kind of like, we just took the worst, from what we knew, the worst case scenario.
And thus far, haven't they come in under each month?
I wouldn't say it was under.
Oh. 'Cause I thought that was, okay.
Well, the first one was under because it was a short payroll period and they caught the next. And so we've only been into this 5 months and we're trying to get a history on it. That's what's really lacking.
It's become consistent. At first, it was not consistent because it was a bad time of year, money-wise, to be switching. They're on a different year-end than we are, and the last few months have been a more consistent cost, but it's still early to say.
If we go back a year, do you have a figure for what we were paying when we were the city police department? What we ended up with at the end of 13-14?
I could go look.
Don't do it now.
13,
I
14,
can let you know.
Is that Jerry?
I've got 681,000.
685.
685?
That's what we budgeted.
That's what you're
for this year.
budgeted, but you don't,
That's
I have to
budgeted.
go into the
Yeah,
computer and see what.
To know exactly
Yeah,
where we
you
ended
gotta
up.
look, the budgeted is a number we start with, and at the end of the year, it could be less, or we have to amend it to be more. And that's where it shows original budget, and it was amended to incorporate the 30,000.
Oh, I see where you are,
Done by
3685.
attorney fees.
Yeah, I've got some numbers there, and I don't know where they're from. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to get that, Deb, but I don't have to have it till tomorrow. It's not that rush, Joe. All right, so
Okay. Any more questions on police?
it's going to get better.
Now we'll go on to fire department, code enforcement, planning and zoning, storm drain, street lighting.
Okay. I have a question on the street lighting. And this is just basically I remember from a really long time ago, this isn't I don't think this is budgeting. I'm not sure what it is. We replaced a whole bunch of street lights with much more energy efficient street lights. Does anyone remember what I'm talking about? We even borrowed bulbs at one point from somewhere to try them out.
I'm sorry, only in the downtown area.
Right. Well, that's what this says
That's
here.
a flat rate contract to consumers.
Correct.
So
for
we,
lighting.
so we can't drop that bill,
Well,
even if
all
we use
of-
less?
All of those downtown lights have been switched over to a metered account.
And that's,
Okay.
that's a separate department.
I was just trying to figure out, why the bill was flat.
Two
If we-
separate accounts. This
Okay.
is what we're mandated by for your street lights, and any street light that consumers maintains and operates, that's what that's for.
So this isn't downtown?
No,
Okay.
that's,
Is it downtown town?
no,
Then where does that come from?
maybe,
Those electric bills come out of, I don't know, Linda
City,
Coaching.
city buildings and grounds.
that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Because I was just trying to like, why did it not drop?
Two-
When we,
two
I remember
separate,
those bulbs being like a super expensive thing, and it was a big deal, and we bought them a chunk at a time, and
This line item is not those lights.
No,
got it. Okay.
City building and grounds, they're $7,300.
and that's for the Main Street lights.
Okay. And I just was curious about the over time, if they were, it was a big deal at the time.
Marty, your repair and maintenance service, that's for the trucks, correct?
Yes, sir.
It's
I have one for repair, excuse me. Sitting here, I got a little dry. I have two different line items. One is the 775 towards the top, repair and maintenance supplies.
Yes.
That's what we purchase to fix the trucks, and the repair and maintenance service expense is what it takes to have somebody come out and open the hood and toss the wrenches.
Yeah, that's what I was curious on what the two were. You have repair and maintenance service expense, and you have a repair and maintenance supply expense.
Yeah, if we buy a battery for the trucks, we don't buy one battery if there's four in there, we buy four batteries, because you know how that works.
Oh, yeah.
You blow a headlight, you buy one headlight, 2 weeks later you're buying the second headlight. So when we buy stuff like that, so the repair and maintenance supply, them four batteries would come out of that account. If I hired somebody to come in and do it, it would be the repair and maintenance service expense. Well, something as simple as a battery, we do in-house on our own. Kind of like Tom does. He has a motor, break a belt, he goes buys the belt, and his guys put it on. So that's the reason there's the two different lines. The one is 775 and the other one is the 930.000. It's one is for the supplies and the other is for the actual repair.
Any other questions on this page?
Our gases went down.
No,
Well, we're not paying $4 a gallon for diesel like we were a year and a half ago.
So that's true. I was just like, how can we pay less? But
Hang on to your socks. I'm not sure where this is gonna go, but we're gonna hope, keep our fingers crossed, that fuel kind of levels out,
okay.
plateaus.
the city, even the DPW has to pay that fluctuating rate, and it's hard to nail that price down. It's like,
Do we do the bulk thing where we get a drop at a frozen price?
We in the fire department, I'm not sure what time it is, but in the fire department, we use Fuel Man. And Fuel Man gives you, I'm not sure what the percentage is. It's a discounted price as to what's on the pump.
it's both, and for the
No,
DPW.
the big thing is they back out all the taxes.
Right, well, but I remember for the school where we used to do the thing where they would give us the frozen rate. That
They
we
would
would,
lock in that good bids because they use so much more fuel. They would.
are we not big enough to have that be worth it?
Well, I don't know how the schools operate. I don't know if they have their own fuel island.
They did.
They do.
And we don't.
They do.
Okay.
So we just go to the gas station.
Matter of fact, it was in that we switched over to biodiesel.
Yeah.
Well, we only dropped $200 in that line.
I know, but it was just that it's going down.
Well, we're anticipating, again, that fuel prices are gonna plateau somewhere around this $3
I'll
mark.
take it. I just was checking.
A couple of other questions, Mayor? Perry, what's on that first?
The dispatch expense, it's like down like 10 grand or something, but then next year it's up another 4
I'm
grand.
gonna turn that over to Miss Burnett, because she has had conversations with the authority at the Kent County Sheriff's Dispatch, and it's gonna be even, if I understood that right, it's gonna even be less than what this number is. And that's because,
Well, our dispatch used to be tied in with when we had our own police department. But since that is different now, we're on our own dispatch, and it's split. I'm not real 100% on it, but I talked to Kent County, and they said that we're in like a pool, kind of like
The fire truck.
yeah. And first year we paid 25%, and then The next year, it actually goes up, Marty, not down. 25%, and then next year, it goes up 50%. And so it's gonna increase a little each year, but it's still gonna be way cheaper than what we were paying when we were our own, when we were mixed in with the police department. So they've redone the way they're billing, because they put, like before, there were a lot of places that weren't paying anything, and they've revamped that so that now everybody is paying a piece of it.
Just to hit briefly on that too, Roger Kern, about a year or so before he retired, was questioning his dispatch expense bill to find out that he was getting a bill for both the police and the fire. So then he called down there and checked into it and got the formula. And this 15,000, where did I lose that? 15,400 was what our share was going in the 2013-14 budget. So that's why it was the 2014-15 budget. That was the formula then. Well, since then, you have contracted with the sheriff's department for police protection, which changed the formula for our dispatch. And I've taken several bottles of aspirin over several different things in this budget, and I'm not sure I still understand everything. But
that's a work in progress too, still with the sheriff getting all these other communities to buy in. And it isn't a done deal, but that was the number that he quoted me, so.
well,
So it's a done deal, that's what we're going.
that's part of the reason you've seen a substantial drop from 15,400 to 4,000. That's
Any
because
other
of
questions on the fire department?
Hydrant rental expense?
Not enough. Okay,
Well,
well,
can you explain that?
What that is that's a way to get general fund monies back into the water fund. So, and it's a pretty much a standard accounting procedure in municipalities, is that you charge the fire department for the use of those fire hydrants,
Okay.
and then they go into, then that goes into the water fund.
no. The old formula was it was $100 per hydrant, and there was some pushback from the fire department, and they cut that. We'll have that
Yeah,
next.
my question on this is, kind of going with what Tom was saying too, trying to form a long-term vision at the same time to see where we need to start. Is there somewhere you feel like maybe the fire department needs some more support that historically you haven't gotten it? Is there anything that, what can we start working toward for you?
what do you mean by support, Mrs. Nixon? You want to come down and pat me on the shoulder every time I come back? That'd be great. But as far as monetary, I think we're headed in the right direction with the help of Deb and the city manager and Mrs. Christensen. We've started off down this path where we're starting to earmark monies for future purchases and being proactive instead of, holy cow, we got to come up with $85,000 for a truck a year. Hopefully, I would like some more money, and I explained to Mr. Clark this afternoon, everything you see here. And I've highlighted, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different items that we've had a slight decrease in the budget. And my budget for 2015-16 is $3,600 more than what it was last year. And that was with the increase of adding monies for the future purchases of the trucks and the gear and stuff. So overall, if you take that money out of there, we're less than what we were last year.
Bottom line is, Marty's done well by his department.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't mean that in a negative way, and he's brought his needs to our attention, and we've addressed them as best we can. I think Marty's needs are being addressed. Certainly, I worked with firemen for a lot of years, and they've got a lot of wants, but the needs are being addressed, and we're trying to address more as they present themselves. Marty does a very good job of.
Oh, yeah, well, I just wanted to put it out there in case there was something that's, failure is imminent, and we should really start doing something
We
about
have
this.
meetings on the first and third Tuesday. Cookies would be greatly appreciated.
That can probably be managed.
No, we, being a taxpayer and realizing that, we have to be cognizant of where this money is going. We try to live within that budget, maybe even a little less, and like I said, I want to be proactive, I want to move ahead and list some of the things and inform the council that, this is coming down the road. Now, like, Mr. Clark asked me, give him a little brief tour of the station and explain the age of the trucks. And my goal is, in the next couple of years or so, to replace the oldest truck. It still pumps, it still goes down the road, it still runs well,